You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I am your host, Steph, and long time no talk, it feels like. The 49ers clinched the division almost a week ago, last Thursday, and I don't think I've gone live since then, so hello, welcome back. But to tell you the truth, I did enjoy my time off. I don't even think I watched a lot of football this weekend because it was just a nice and easy weekend knowing that the 49ers had clinched the division. There's not much to worry about from our end, but, now we're back and talking about the 49ers offense today and the challenge that awaits them in the Washington Commanders defense. We're going to talk all about it. We're going to go through all the different position groups. You know how we do. Let's look at some comments here. Melissa says, Merry Christmas, Steph. Can't wait to see what you got for us. Thank you, Melissa. Merry Christmas to you, too. Happy holidays to everyone, all of my listeners. I appreciate it. All I want for Christmas is for you guys to give this video a thumbs up, to subscribe if you have not yet. And, of course, if you're listening to this on audio, make sure you leave a review. Now, let's get into some of the 49ers' latest news. So earlier this week, I believe it happened yesterday, the 49ers opened the practice window, the 21-day practice window of defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, who had been on IR for several weeks. And they also opened the practice window of defensive tackle Kalia Davis. That is the rookie 6th-round pick in this year's draft. He was on the NFI list, and he was on the NFI list to start the season. Because I've seen a lot of talk, I've seen some debate about whether the 49ers are going to bring back Javon Kinlaw or Kalia Davis, because the team only has 8 return from designations, and they have used up 6 of them. So they only have 2 left, and you would assume that would be Javon Kinlaw and Elijah Mitchell. Now, the question was, does Kalia Davis count towards that? I believe that because Kalia Davis was on the NFI list to start the season, hence he is not a return technically from the season. This isn't an injury that he sustained this season. It wasn't placed on the NFI list during the season. It was before. So he doesn't count towards that return from count of 8. So I think they should be able to bring back Javon Kinlaw, Elijah Mitchell, and Kalia Davis if they want to. So, hope that helps. And I hope that's true. There's a lot of mixed talk about that one, so not entirely sure, but I believe at this point in time that that's how it works. So the 49ers also signed a cornerback to their practice squad. Not a surprise, because Charvarius Ward entered the concussion protocol after the game. Actually, Friday morning is when he entered the concussion protocol. He was cleared for a concussion during the game. And Ambry Thomas reactivated a ankle injury, so they signed a corner, Trey Swilling, to their practice squad. I know, very eventful stuff going on here. Riveting. But let's get into the practice report for the 49ers and Commanders, because that really starts to set the stage for what we can expect this week. For the do not practice for the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kevin Givens, Tarvarius Moore, those 3 should not be surprising to anyone. So, yeah. In fact, I don't even know why Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the practice list, technically, because pretty sure they placed him on IR, right? So anyway, Deebo Samuel is the big one here for the do not practice, although he was seen on the sideline doing some light work, which is pretty encouraging, given the fact that, as we know, it was going to be a multi-week injury for Deebo Samuel, but the fact that he is already 1 week removed from his injury doing some light side work, that's a great sign. And so Kyle Shanahan also said that if they were absolutely desperate for Deebo Samuel, he could could have potentially played this week against the Commanders. But since the 49ers are not that desperate, right? They've already clinched a spot in the playoffs. No thought of bringing Deebo Samuel as soon as this week, but maybe next week. At the same time, though, the 49ers are pretty good from here on out, I would say. I know they're trying to get to the 2 seed, but Kyle Shanahan did say they'll be careful with their injured players. Now, as far as the limited players go, there's Eric Armstead, Kerry Hyder, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, Ambry Thomas, and Charvarius Ward. As I mentioned, Charvarius Ward on the concussion protocol, but he's no longer in a blue no contact jersey, which that means that he's progressing well in the concussion protocol, which is a good sign. And he's probably on his way to being cleared ahead of Saturday, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'll keep you guys posted in my next episode, but as of right now, it's looking good for Charvarius Ward. And of course, all these other limited guys, I wouldn't worry too much about for the 49ers. Now, on the Commanders side, limited was Antonio Gibson with a foot injury, their guard, Andrew Norwell, their corner, Benjamin St. Just, and a defensive end, Chase Young, who has yet to play any games this season. But the hope for the Commanders is that he'll be available as soon as this week, and that would be huge for them. He had a chance to come back last week, but they decided to keep him out another week. So this could be the week that they unleash Chase Young, and that would definitely be a huge factor in this game. But also their safety Cam Curl was limited today as well. Look, let's look at the battle. Oh, sorry, not Battle of the Trenches. I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, 1 second. You guys are blowing up the comments real quick. Let me get to the comments. 49ers throwback says, hopefully Kinlaw stays healthy. Yeah, that's always the caveat with Kinlaw, right? Is that he's struggled to stay on the field. And I feel for him, because it's more so the fact, he's trying everything that he physically can to stay healthy. He came into the season looking like a freaking wrestling action figure, and his knee is just the issue. It's like a chronic issue that he has with his knee. So there's not much that he can do about that, I don't think. And as far and the team, I don't think there's much. You just got to manage it and hope for the best. So they rested it for all these weeks that he's been on IR. And yeah, the hope is that he could at least finish the season, right? And the 49ers need defensive tackle depth right now. So having Javon Kinlaw back would be huge. What's going on, Steph? Got a name twin in the comments. Shout out you. Double B Studio says, I just saw Jack Del Rio say that Brock Purdy replacing Jimmy is the same seamlessly. Yes and no. Brock Purdy is doing a little extra of what Jimmy Garoppolo does. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo has the advantage of experience. He's played in several games before, things like that. But Brock Purdy is also doing things that Jimmy Garoppolo simply did not, which is, he's shown a willingness to throw downfield. He is very accurate, throwing outside of the pocket while he's on the move. All these things I think are, yes, he does give you what Jimmy Garoppolo was giving you, but he also gives you a little bit extra, which I think is what I'm liking about Brock Purdy the most right now. He gives you just a little bit of extra juice. 49ers Throwback says, I'm excited. Hopefully we get to see Kalia Davis play. I would love to see Kalia Davis play because he is a beast. And he reminded me a lot of DJ Jones. I know the 49ers were reminded of DJ Jones when they saw Kalia Davis. And so that is the hope of what he could potentially become, right? Because with a D-line coach like Chris Kosarek, he can develop Kalia Davis into something special, I think. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm excited. Jack Del Rio in for a surprise for sure. 49ers Throwback says, this is going to be a tough game. This Commanders game scares me. Out of all of the regular season games left, which there aren't many, right? This is the game to fear the most because, yes, the Commanders defense has a really the Commanders have a really good defense. I think that's they're very underrated. And as you can see in these stats here that I'm about to go over, there aren't many categories in which they are not in the top 10. So let me go through some of these categories for you here. Let's see. They are first in opponent average time of possession. They are second in first downs allowed per game. They are fourth in opponent completion percentage, only allowing 61.93% of passes to be completed. Fourth in third down conversion percentage allowed. Fourth in total yards allowed per game. Eighth in passing yards allowed per game. Ninth in touchdowns allowed per game. Ninth in points allowed per game. And so, okay, those all were in the top 10. You guys notice that? They're top 10 in all of those categories. Now, here are where they're not in the top 10, okay? But it's not much still. 12th in rushing yards allowed per game. So still pretty good. 12th in sack percentage. Still pretty good. 15th in average rushing yards per carry. Now that's like, somewhat average to be like 15th. And they're 26th in interceptions per game. So they're not forcing a lot of interceptions. So that's good news. But looking at all of these other things that they do so well, yeah, the 49ers offense are in for a real challenge in this game. And that's what I'm worried about a little bit. That's going to be the challenge for Brock Purdy. He has gone against some tough defenses in this 3-game. Well, really the toughest defense was the Bucs, right? And even then the Bucs were a little shorthanded. They were missing some guys in their secondary. So I think this one's going to be even tougher because they are much better at the top of they're much better in the trenches. One second. Okay. Let's move on to the battle of the trenches now that I'm talking about it. Oh, and good question. 49ers Throwback says, aren't we second most in time of possession? I think that's what you're asking. I think you missed the word we, right? Yes. The 49ers are second in most times of possession. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out in a game where they're going up against each other, right? Both of those teams can't win the time of possession. But it might be one of those games where we see a lot of punts, I think, because it's going to be all defense pretty much. All right. Now, let's move on, like I said, to the battle of the trenches. Oh, wait. One thing I wanted to point out about this previous part here. The completion percentage part, right? I pointed that out. They are fourth in opponent completion percentage allowed. However, in their last 3 games, they would rank 26th in allowed completion percentage. So in the last 3 games, they've allowed a little bit more. So I don't know if that'll be a factor in this game, but just something I thought I'd point out. And as far as the rushing yards per game, they have allowed more lately on that front as well. They're averaging 143 rush yards allowed per game in their last 3 games. And that would rank them 25th in that span of last 3 games. So not great. So maybe they're kind of regressing in these 2 areas a little bit, which would be a good thing for the 49ers, especially the rushing yards allowed per game. With Christian McCaffrey coming to town, I know the 49ers would definitely welcome that. But let's see. Let's talk about the battle of the trenches. Let me try to make this a little bit bigger for you guys watching on YouTube here. All right. So here's what I'm talking about, right? They have a really good defensive line. Darren Payne, he has the most sacks on the team with 8.5. And really the thing about the Commanders' defensive line is there isn't just one guy who does it all. They all kind of spread the wealth a little bit. So Darren Payne, 8.5 sacks, followed by Jonathan Allen with 7.5, followed by Montez Sweat with 7. So all those guys getting a good fair share of sacks. There isn't one guy who's getting them all. You know what I mean? Like on our team, it's mostly Nick Bosa. But yeah, everyone on this line is a threat. I would say somewhat equally. Darren Payne also tied for third in tackles for loss. He has 15 tackles for loss on the season. Montez Sweat, he's tied for sixth in tackles for loss with 12. That is per Pro Football Reference. And Montez Sweat is also tied for third in quarterback hits. So he is their best defensive lineman probably that has played the entire season. Of course, we haven't seen much of Chase Young, this season, but we know that he's a really good edge rusher as well. So with the fact that Chase Young might play in this game and they have Montez Sweat already on the other side, that could make for a real big challenge this week for this offensive line. And I didn't even mention Jonathan Allen, also tied for fourth in forced fumbles. He has 2 on the season. So all of these guys on their defensive line are a threat. And, I'm scared. But here's what I am encouraged by. We have Trent Williams, okay, who's going to be going up against Montez Sweat. That is going to be a battle. Never mind the fact that this is going to be tough for Trent Williams, but if you're a fan of football, that is going to be a battle you're going to want to watch like the whole game. If you have all 22, if you like watching all 22, tune in to Trent Williams and Montez Sweat because that one is going to be definitely entertaining. And you know what? My money's going to be on Trent Williams to win more reps than he loses, right? I mean, Trent has, in practice, he goes up against Nick Bosa, who right now is looking like the best pass rusher in the league. So I think Trent's going to be ready for it. Yeah, Montez Sweat is going to give him all he can handle. There's going to be some reps that he loses, but I feel good about Trent, holding it down for most of the game. Now, if Chase Young plays, the question is, okay, how would Mike McGlinchey hold up? Because Mike McGlinchey, he's been doing pretty good lately, all right? I know you guys don't want to hear this because everyone likes to sing the choir of McGlinchey sucks, but he hasn't been that bad, okay? He hasn't allowed a sack in 6 straight games. And against the Seattle Seahawks, he had a clean slate in that game. He didn't allow any pressures, no QB hits, no nothing, nada. Okay, so put some respect on McGlinchey for now. All right, let's see how he does because last week against Nwosu, who is the Seahawks' best pass rusher, he did pretty well. All right, and like I said, 6 straight games without allowing a sack. Let's see if he can keep it up. Here's what I'm manifesting. Chase Young coming back from injury, his first game back in several weeks. What if he's a little rusty, He's got to get up to speed a little bit. This is a desperation game for the Washington Commanders in that, if they lose, they're pretty much out of the playoffs. However, if they win, which they're going to try like hell to win this game because there's so much riding on it for them, they have a shot. They have a shot at making the playoffs and getting in there. And once you're in the dance, anything can happen. So I think they are going to play Chase Young, and I think they're going to want to have him in there for as long as possible because they have nothing really to lose. So the only hope is that he would be a little rusty. But again, Mike McGlinchey has been holding it down lately. Let's see if he can keep it up, all right? I'm going to try to be optimistic. All right. You see my face again. Here we go. Let me get to some comments. You guys are blowing me up. Love it. I love it. 49ers Throwback says, one thing Niners have an advantage over the Commanders is we protect the football. Commanders turn the ball over, and Niners defense are second in takeaways. Woo! I love that. You're doing my work for me. See, this is the offense preview episode, but my defense preview episode is on Friday, and I'm going to look these stats up. So thank you for this one. Good call out for sure. 49ers Throwback. Double B Studio says, Purdy just going to have to get the ball out in 2 seconds. That's actually one of my keys of the game. Not that he has to get the ball out in 2 seconds, but he has to get it out very quickly. That's definitely one of the keys, and I'll talk about the other keys of the game for the offense in a bit. CG Ruthless, what's going on, my guy? Make sure you subscribe to CG if you haven't yet. He says we just got to run the ball a little more to neutralize their defensive line. That's one way to do it. And as I mentioned, last 3 games they've given up a lot of more rush yards than they have in the season. So that could be good for this offense if they can keep a balanced offensive attack. And then he says, hopefully Ayuk steps up well. We need him. Steps up, we'll need him. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about Ayuk and the surprising, kind of stats of, when Debo's out, how do these guys perform? Talk about that in a bit. And CG says, use a little bit more of Mason, figure out ways to keep McCaffrey fresh and healthy, keep it 2 running backs. Whoever does well gets more carries. I think McCaffrey helps more in the passing game. He absolutely helps more in the passing game. I'm not opposed to them using Jordan Mason as the closer because I think that works well for this team and I think it works well for Mason too, because by that point, the defense is a little tired. By that point, also, you've kind of demoralized the defense a little bit with, offensive success throughout the game. And at that point, they don't want to tackle Jordan Mason. I mean, it's just too much to ask, right? So I'm liking what they're doing with Mason, and also it's a good way for Mason to get more reps and get used to it. And, sure, yeah, if he shows that he can handle a little bit more, let's give him a little bit more. But I'm currently okay with what they're doing with the 1-2 punch there. Yep, CG says Chase will be rusty for sure. I don't know if it's for sure, but I definitely would hope that he would be rusty. Yeah. 49ers Throwback says he hasn't played like in almost 2 years. Chase Young, he's been hurt. Yeah, so that could play a role for sure, but I think they're gonna want to. I don't think the Washington Commanders are going to reel him in. I don't think they're gonna ease him in, I should say, because they're desperate. They're gonna put their best guy out there, who's Chase Young, and so. We'll just see how he does. We'll see. But yeah, CG says McGlinchey should be solid. Steph here says optimism when it comes to McGlinchey is ... brave. Wow. You have no faith in McGlinchey, huh? All right. Well, he's been doing all right lately, so that's what I'm basing that confidence out of. And it's just hope, I'm just trying to manifest it. We got to manifest positive things here, people. All right. Well, let's see what the Commanders are doing against tight ends this season. They're allowing an average of 5 targets, 3.6 receptions, 30.3 yards per game to tight ends. And they've allowed just 3 touchdowns to tight ends this season. So they're defending the tight ends better than the 49ers defense have been this season. And that's saying a lot because 49ers defense have been great at defending against tight ends. So that tells you a lot right there. But let's talk about this guy, George Kittle, right? You guys might know him. Last week against Seattle, he had 5 targets, 4 catches, 93 yards. 53 of those were after the catch, and he had 2 touchdowns. So, Kyle Shanahan, as we saw in that game against Seattle, he schemed him open pretty much. And most of that was made possible by McCaffrey and what, a lot of people are calling his gravitational pull, because the defense is always so focused on McCaffrey and where he's going because he's a threat everywhere. And so wherever McCaffrey goes, the defense kind of just shifts. Like you kind of just see it happen. And Kyle Shanahan has seen that too. So he says, you know what? Okay, bet I'm going to get George Kittle open, have him like go against 1 or 2 DBs, and he's going to get a touchdown. Easy peasy. So that's pretty much what he did twice in that game against Seattle. And I would imagine he's going to try to do that again against the Commanders, but we'll just have to see. Commanders haven't faced a lot of elite tight ends this season either. The best one so far, I would say, is probably Hawkinson. And at that point, he was with the Vikings. He had 9 receptions for 70 yards in that game. And the only other, honorable mention, I would say, is in the elite, I'm putting elite in air quotes, tight ends is Dallas Goedert. Goddard, right? Goddard. I'm terrible at names. Dallas Goddard. They faced him twice against the Eagles this season. In each game, he had a touchdown. So they could be had with tight ends, with good tight ends. So if Kyle wants to involve Kittle more like he did last week, I think he can. I think it's going to be there for him. So, and here's where I get to my next point, because I feel like this is important. In 2 games without Deebo Samuel, I want to show you guys what this team has done. All right, because you would think that Ray McLeod, who is getting those snaps, so Deebo Samuel snaps as a receiver, would get more attention, would get more targets, all that. No, he really doesn't. So in 2 games this season without Deebo, that was week 8 and last week, okay, week 15, he's averaging 2.5 targets, 13.5 yards, an average. Not great. So he doesn't have a lot of involvement, even with Deebo Samuel out, even with him getting all of those snaps, And then finally we have Ayuk. In 2 games this season without Deebo, he is averaging 5 targets, 6 catches, 50 yards, and 0.5 touchdowns. He had 1 touchdown in the 2 games, so that's the 0.5. So you would also expect a little bit more out of Ayuk with Deebo Samuel out, but he's been kind of quiet. So I don't know. Are the 49ers trying to set up a Ayuk game? Because I would love that. Personally, I would love that in this game, in any game, really. I don't know. Maybe they're getting to that point, because we saw Kittle go off last week. Maybe it's Ayuk's turn. I don't know. All right, next is Kittle, okay? So he is also a guy who gets a little bit of an uptick with Deebo Samuel out. He's averaging, with Deebo Samuel out, 4.5 targets, 66 yards, and 1.5 touchdowns. In 1 game, he had 2 touchdowns. I believe that was last week. Duh. Against the Seahawks, he had the 2 touchdowns. And then in week 8, he had 1 touchdown against the Rams. So that's the average of 1.5. Now, McCaffrey is where it really starts to blow up, okay? He's the one who gets the ball all the time when Deebo Samuel is out, okay? So without Deebo Samuel, this is what McCaffrey is averaging. 8 targets, 42.5 receiving yards, 0.5 receiving touchdowns. So he had 1 touchdown in 1, in another he did not. He's also averaging 22 carries, 101 rushing yards, and a yards per carry average of 4.7. And he, in both games in which Deebo Samuel was out, he has a rushing touchdown. So this is huge volume for McCaffrey, and I would expect this to continue in this game. Now, what I also expect is for the Commanders to, see what the 49ers are doing with McCaffrey and say, well, we're simply just going to put all our focus on stopping him, make the rookie Brock Purdy try to beat us. That's what they're going to try to do. But this is where the point that I made earlier comes into play, because when you do that, and we saw it in the game against Seattle, when you do that, McCaffrey is going to have that gravitational pull. Everywhere he goes, defenders are going to shift that way because he garners that much attention. You have to respect him wherever he is on the field. And that's going to open things up for other guys. So that's why I'm saying, yes, either McCaffrey's going to have a really good game or everyone else is going to have a really good game. That's just how it works. And I'll talk more about Christian McCaffrey and the impact that he has on this offense in a little bit. Let me get some comments really quick. Go deer, go Goddard. I got it right. You're funny. Yeah, so Double B Studio says McGlinchey is that pair of underwear with holes you need to toss, but won't because you need them. Wow. That is quite the analogy. I've never heard that one, but it's not a bad one, I guess. Okay. Double B Studio also says if Niners are trailing, I think they use AB more, but as long as they lead, it's all CMC. You're talking about Ayuk, right? So BA. Yeah, I think I think you might be onto something there, but I also think, McCaffrey, he's going to get a lot of the attention, and the Commanders are a defense who could stop McCaffrey. I think they're capable of doing that if that's what they want to do. But like I said, that just puts them in a tough pickle anyway, because it's pick your poison on this offense, right? So you can put all that attention on McCaffrey if you want to. Okay, Kittle's going to be open for a touchdown. Ayuk's going to be open for a touchdown potentially, The thing that's going to make it difficult for Purdy, though, is that he's going to have to deal with that, plus being able to having to get the ball out quickly. So that's the challenge that he didn't really have so much last week against Seattle. Is he didn't really have to get the ball out quickly, and he had some time to throw. So that'll be the new element for him. Let's move on here, though. Let's see how the Commanders defend against wide receivers. So against opposing wide receiver units, they're allowing an average of 18.9 targets, 12.9 receptions, and 158 yards. And that is not to just one wide receiver. That is to the whole wide receiver unit, okay? And they've allowed 11 touchdowns to wide receivers this season. Let's talk about their corners real quick. So they have Benjamin, is it St. Just or St. Just? If you guys know in the comments, let me know. I'm going to say St. Just. That just sounds cooler. St. Just. I was a big fan of him, actually, coming out of college. He is tied for third in passes defended with 13. And he's actually missed the last 3 games with an ankle sprain. So he could be coming back in this game after missing the previous 3. Will he potentially be rusty? So that's a question mark. I do know, though, that they've been missing him a lot. So if he is there, it's obviously a boost to that defense and that secondary. Now, they also have Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller is a really solid corner. He's tied for 5th in passes defended. So they're both pretty good in that department. He has 11 on the season. And then their nickel corner, Bobby McCain, is actually a safety, but he lines up in the slot on nickel downs. Kind of sounds like Jimmy Ward. Okay, he's allowing 82.5% completion percentage, though. When I talk about Brandon Ayuk game, that's an opportunity right there. Bobby McCain allowing 82.5 completion percentage in his coverage. Let's get BA in the slot and see what this guy can do, because I think he might have some trouble going up against BA. I've always said that, like, Ayuk can cook anybody. He can cook any corner. Maybe not on every single play, but he can have 1 or 2 plays or more even where he's going to cook a guy real bad, and he's going to get open just by, like, how he ran his route. Bobby McCain, you're next on the list, buddy. I could just feel it. I know it. Mark my words right there. All right, so let's get being in the slot, see what he does. Let's talk about McCaffrey now. All right, so here's what I'm talking about with McCaffrey and his impact on this team. Here's this tweet by Akash. Shout out Akash. Since joining the 49ers, here's Christian McCaffrey's ranks among running backs. He's 1st in receptions, 2nd in yards, 1st in yards after the catch among running backs, 1st in first downs, 1st in PFF receiving grade. I mean, the man is just on fire, And this is the element that even with Deebo Samuel out, you still have, because McCaffrey could do those same things. He's a wide back in his own right. So, the 49ers got a good one for sure. And then this, David Lombardi shared this earlier, and it is for you guys to see. Here's the 49ers offense with McCaffrey as a full-time player in this offense. And for the audio listeners, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to describe as much as I can out of this graphic. But basically, in points per game, they've jumped from number 20 without McCaffrey to number 6 with McCaffrey. Let's look at another one here. What's another good one? And let's see. Even in giveaway EPA per game, they were negative 6.63. Now they're negative 1.38. Let's see. What's another one? Look at this one. Pass DVOA. Before Christian McCaffrey, they were 14.6%. After the Christian McCaffrey trade, or after he became a full-time player on this team, 62.7%. Now, I explained DVOA on the Bully Bob podcast earlier this week. Shout out to the Bully Bob podcast. Not me shouting my own podcast out, but I meant like, I meant check the podcast out, like if you haven't yet. Shout out Jason DePonte, shout out Niners Nation, Rob Stats. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, make sure you guys check that out. We have an episode a week. But anyway, I talked about DVOA. So basically what it is in its simplest form is a way to see how a team is better than the league average. Okay, so the percentage value you see is how much better a team is than the league average. So 14.6% is how much better the team wasn't against the league average before McCaffrey. After McCaffrey, they are 62.7% in pass DVOA. So in the passing game, they are 62.7% than the average teams in the NFL. And then as far as rushing goes, they were negative before McCaffrey. They were negative 15.7. Now, after McCaffrey became a full-time player, they are 5.5%. So they're heading in the right direction. And overall, here, let's look at this one. They were negative 5% overall DVOA. So they were negative 5, worse than the average, negative 0.5, or negative 5.0. After McCaffrey became a full-time player, they are 20% DVOA overall, 20.1. So they are 20% above average overall as a team after McCaffrey became a full-time player. That is insane. Like, that just tells you how much of an impact he has on this team, and not just the offense. I think it just goes both ways, because now as a team, you're more balanced, and that makes you just more dangerous on both sides of the ball. Steph says, still doesn't feel real that CMC is a Niner. I agree with you. I feel like I got to pinch myself at least like once a week, because I'm like, wow. Like we always talked about McCaffrey being like the prototypical running back to Kyle Shanahan's offense, but we never thought that we would get him, and here we are with him, and we see the impact that he does. Double B Studio says, a touchdown Purdy threw up Brandon Ayuk over cornerback, I think, versus Tampa. He cooked that guy bad and had time to stop and catch and scored the touchdown. Yes. Purdy underthrew it a little bit, and it didn't even matter because that's how open Ayuk got on that one. He had that guy covering air, basically, after that move. So, yeah, BA, he's going to cook someone in Sunday's game. WB Studio says offense players play harder because CMC is there. That could be. That could be. I would love that. All right, let's see what the Commanders' defense are doing against running back. So this is running back unit, okay? Not just the main running back, but any other running backs that get carries. This is the average of what they're allowing. An average of 19.3 carries, 79.6 yards, 4.1 yards per carry average to opposing teams' running back unit per game. That's not a lot of yardage, so it might be a little bit of tough sledding for Christian McCaffrey, especially as I mentioned, if their game plan is going to be to put all of their focus on stopping McCaffrey, which I have a feeling that it will be. So just keep that in mind. But they have allowed 12 touchdowns to running backs this season, 6 on the ground, 6 through the air. So that also kind of bodes well for the 49ers because McCaffrey can get touchdowns either way, right? So we'll see, but it's going to be tougher for sure. But let's see. Let's talk about Brock Purdy now. Last week against the Seahawks, he was 17 of 26, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. Reminder, he was also dealing with an oblique injury. You can tell at times it was affecting him. He was also dealing with crowd noise. Although, I don't know if the crowd noise was really as loud as it had been in the past, but still something of note. Big high-stakes game. You know, you could clinch the division. It was prime time. I thought Brock Purdy, all of that considered, I think he did really good. And over the last 2 weeks, he has a passer rating of 124.6, which would be highest of all quarterbacks in that span. That is crazy. My man's cooking right now, Brock Purdy. And I'm excited to see what he looks like. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I know it's going to be tough for him, but this is going to be a good litmus test for him to kind of see what he's made of. And I think we might see his floor in this game. And that'll be a good, measuring stick for how this team performs then in the playoffs when there are tougher defenses, when every week you're going up against a tough defense. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I like what I see out of Brock Purdy. This tweet from Field Yates, I'm going to read it for you. Since 1950, there are just 3 quarterbacks to throw for 4+ touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and have at least a 70% completion percentage in their first 2 starts. You guys want to take a gander who those 3 quarterbacks are? Aaron Rodgers in 2008, Jimmy Garoppolo in 2016, and Brock Purdy in 2022. That's nuts. So yeah, he's doing some good things. And like I said, I think there's some things that he's shown that is a little different, better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's no knock on Garoppolo. But it's simply it's a plus. It's a plus for Brock Purdy, and it's a plus for this offense. So I like the direction this is going. Now, here are my keys of the game for the 49ers offense. As I mentioned a little bit ago, Brock Purdy has got to get the ball out quickly because this Commanders defensive line is no joke, and they're going to be looking for blood. All right, they're going to try to get those sacks on Purdy. They're going to try to get in his head and force him into making mistakes. He's got to get the ball out quickly. He also has to avoid turnovers. It's good that the Commanders don't get a lot of interceptions, but still, the fact that he's going to be getting a lot of pressure, I would imagine, could lead to some mistakes. And so the 49ers have to make sure they avoid turning the ball over. And they also have to take advantage of McCaffrey's gravitational pull. As I mentioned, I think a lot of the focus is going to be on Christian McCaffrey because of what he did last week and what he's been doing with Deebo Samuel out of the lineup. He gets the ball a lot. And so there's going to be a lot of focus on him. Take advantage of that. I know Kyle Shanahan's going to take advantage of it. He's just like kind of hoping at this point. I think he's got him right where they want him, right where he wants him. And it's just going to get other guys open. I think that's what it's leading up to in this game, potentially. I hope. So, yes, get the ball out quickly, avoid turnovers, and take advantage of Christian McCaffrey's gravitational pull. Those are my 3 keys of the game for the 49ers offense. Let's get to some comments really quick. Guys, I love you guys. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Double B Studio says offense players play hard. Oh, wait, I already read that one. Paul says, you think Jordan Mason will get a carry in the first half this week? I hope so. No, I don't, because I think they're liking this thing with Mason of him being like the closer, that second half kind of guy, once the defense has been a little more worn down. That's the perfect time to unleash Jordan Mason, because he's so difficult to bring down. It's almost like a punishment to have to tackle him, and that's the second half is like the perfect time to unleash him. Double B Studio says, I say Niners rush double what Commanders allowed on defense. My prediction, not a bad prediction. 49ers Throwback says, I agree, Steph, and he might use his legs mobility. Talking about Purdy, yeah, so that's another factor of Purdy's game that I love. That's a little different than Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think when we first traded for him, he was pretty athletic, sneaky athletic, where he would escape the pocket and he had good feel for the pocket. He was never really panicked. But then I don't really know what happened. I think like just some of the injuries that he suffered throughout the years just kind of made him almost a shell of himself in that aspect. And so Brock Purdy, he's not jaded at all. And he will use his legs if he needs to. And he does have a good feel for the pocket and knowing when to escape. And he's accurate when throwing on the move. And that's really important. And so you love to see that out of a quarterback. Double B Studio says, Jordan Mason will get reps if Kyle feels he needs to, like if CMC is tired before the half because They're rushing big plays. Other than that, he's a second half back. Yes, exactly. Paul says Purdy is very poised. That extra experience in college has helped him rise to the moment. Absolutely. I mean, you can see how invaluable that experience has been for him and for this team so far. Double B Studio says Dolphins tried blitzing BCB and it failed. I think he will take advantage of these blitzes. That's one thing I failed to check and look into before this preview episode because I wanted to see how much the Commanders blitz. I don't think they blitz that much, but I'll have to double check. But yeah, if blitzing is part of their game, then I think Brock Purdy will prove that he is good at that. I mean, he's already proven that he's good at that. So if that's part of their game plan, I think they'll find that, he's still going to be able to get the ball out quickly and to the right spots. So I don't know if that's the right game plan. It almost seemed like to me going up against the Seahawks and having to beat coverage was more of the bigger test for him, and it slowed him down a little bit. I know there were other factors to that as well, like his oblique injury, but I think that's kind of the way to go, that defenses will try to stop him that way, have him beat more coverage, instead of, blitzing him to death because he's proven he can beat that. Paul says he's a bruiser and needs to be getting fed those short yardage runs, talking about Jordan Mason. CMC gets stuffed on the goal line. At times he does. Yeah, at times. But I think it's for that same reason, right? Like people see McCaffrey and they're like, all right, let's all go to where McCaffrey's going. Like it's all hands on deck when McCaffrey's on the field. So I think that's why that is. But yeah, I agree. Jordan Mason, he's a bruiser. And the short yardage runs, yeah, I wouldn't be mad if he got some of those even in the first half. So, but all right, guys, that's all I have for you guys today. Went a little longer than I usually do. But I appreciate you guys staying on with me. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. I do these previews every single week. Today's was the offense one. On Friday, I'm doing the defense preview. So we're going to go through all the position groups just like we always do. And then if you're listening to this on audio as a podcast, where you listen to all your podcasts, make sure that you leave me a review because I appreciate that a lot, and it's going to help me, grow and expand this podcast. All right. Yes. Steph says great preview episode. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys, and have a good rest of your night. See you guys Friday. Peace.